When I say that Iran has an upper hand, how do they have an upper hand? Because the Strait of Hormuz, one, has been effectively shut. Now, despite massive US military presence, Iran is leveraging geography, unconventional warfare to dominate the strait. How are they doing? They are doing with the help of hidden missile batteries, ability to deploy sea mines, drones, and they're not even chasing targets. The choke point is being turned into a kill zone. Even the mighty United States Navy is facing a complex layered environment. Iran is relying on asymmetric tactic, low cost, high impact tools designed to overwhelm even the most advanced militaries. In this theater, you don't even have one US aircraft carrier. Gerald Ford is in Crete and USS Abraham Lincoln is in the Arabian Sea. It's not even in the Gulf of Oman. Now, from sea mines that can be silently deployed to the drones and unarmed explosive boats to fast-attack craft that can swarm the larger vessels, the focus is on unpredictability and pressure. Even small submarines operating in shallow waters add another layer of threat. The strategy is simple: don't fight the enemy head-on, make the battlefield so dangerous that the enemy cannot operate freely. And that's the challenge to the Navy of the United States of America. That's the complex aspect. It cannot afford to let a choke point that carries 20% of the world's energy that remains under threat. But securing it militarily is easier said than done. Deployments like USS Tripoli and Marine Expeditionary Unit signal readiness, but they also raise the stakes. Any attempt to escort tankers will require a massive multi-layered defense system involving satellites, drone surveillance aircrafts, and mine-clearing operations. And even then, the risk cannot be eliminated, which means every move that US makes carries the danger of escalation, especially if it starts targeting the oil infrastructure. So my big question here is, can America make a mistake like what the British did in the Gallipoli? Let me introduce my guest. I'm joined by Lieutenant General P.G.S. Panu, former Deputy Chief, Indian Integrated Defence Staff, and Ile Peish, Director International Relations. He joins me live from Israel. But let me go to Ile Peish first. Ile, I was reading about the Gallipoli, the battle where Winston Churchill lost his vice admiralty, and he had to climb up the political ladder again because that was his Waterloo. From the perspective of pure defense, how do you describe the challenge of freeing up the Hormuz in context of the American Navy?
Obviously, it's a big challenge. There's no doubt. But now that Iran has escalated and is really threatening the entire world economy, it actually demonstrates to the Americans the importance of replacing this regime and understanding that this war needs to end without this regime in place, because they now know they have the ability to hold the world economy hostage anytime they want. Whether this war ends with the regime in place or not, at any time, Iran has that ability, and it's something that not just the US, but frankly the entire world needs to understand, that this is something that shouldn't be acceptable and needs to be eliminated.
Okay. I'm also joined by General Panu. Thank you, sir, for joining my show on this issue. So we were discussing about, sir, why Iran has an upper hand right now. So my question was, which I asked to Ile, who joins us from Israel, the Battle of Gallipoli, and I had been there and I saw that, the battle, the British Army got sandwiched. A lot of articles have been written there. Can you just tell us what are the challenges of making Hormuz free from the control of Iran? Is it possible?
Kartika, it's a question which is there that the whole world is groping to answer. The geography is completely in favor of Iran because they have the lock and the key with them. As far as whatever's happened in about 4 weeks' time, it appears that the gains are disproportionate for Iran, but completely against the Americans at the moment, because the gains which the Americans have made, really speaking, are only number of missiles that they claim that they have fired, and they have fired. the response of Iran still remains the same. In fact, you find that the Iranians have been able to target huge amount of targets, not only towards Israel, but I think all over. Wherever they have used drones, they have used drones. Wherever they have used missiles, they have used missiles. But what is important to understand here is not to go to the great wars, but today there are space and cyber operations which are completely invisible. There is also electronic warfare, which has another dimension. So therefore, if you combine the space, cyber, and the electronic warfare, these impacts in warfare are not measurable, nor can ever be reported, or you can even see the damage on ground. Most of the platforms that are being used for high technology are based on these kind of networks. And therefore, platform-centric legacy equipment can be put to harm or can be put to disuse through the electronic means and through the space and the cyber. Second thing is that space and cyber operations do not have a geographical entity. They can be actually operated from anywhere. So only if you look at Iran, you find that there is a geographical entity that you look at, but you cannot really measure the impact of the space and cyber operations, which can come from anywhere. In fact, most of the cyber operations are third party, fourth party. They do not get triggered from the place from where the actual command and control is located. Another thing is that you've got the example of two Gulf wars, where the first Gulf War was completely aerial. But it necessitated the second Gulf War because the boots on ground had to be put there. So therefore, if the Americans are still fighting the first or the second Gulf War, I do not know if they're doing more than that. But now the option of boots on ground seems to be running out of time. And therefore, either the Americans are having an operational or a logistic pause, or they have run out of stamina, or they have run out of a narrative. I think this is the time where there is a time out taken by Trump to reconsider. If he is reinforcing a failure, it means he must step back and redesign his whole battlefield and whole strategy. But at the same time, the narrative of victory will continue. So therefore, it is going to be a political, economic, military, and also the narrative of domination, which is at play through the narratives. So coming down to the another thing that, you keep talking about the boots on ground, the 82 Airborne Division is around. Of course, 82 Airborne Division was also used in the Gulf. But the point is here, there is a huge amount of water body through which the airborne operation will have to go through. And you see the wind conditions and the weather conditions, no paratrooper, because after all, 82 Airborne Division are all paratrooping force. And no paratrooper can predict to land at a place because of the wind conditions and because of the bad weather conditions. The only option here is to go through the water and handle the underwater domain. So therefore, the use of Marine or Navy SEALs through the swimmer delivery vehicles, which we call chariots in the past, or do the infiltration through the water, or use manned torpedoes or chariots, human driven underground or underwater vehicles are most likely to be used. But you see how the corals are designed around. So it is very, very complex operation, and I think far too much will go into planning of it. So I think it necessitates a strategic and operational.
Okay, I'll rephrase the question, and I'll go to LA from the popular perspective. People get to see the American military might in the Hollywood films. You see, the big navy, aircraft carrier, all of them are absent. People would have thought the mighty aircraft carriers would have been there. The mighty aircraft carriers are not there, neither in the Gulf of Oman nor in the Persian Gulf. Why LA? Is it because the nature of the warfare in the last 20 years has completely changed, and the American military did not accommodate those asymmetric challenges?
Well, I think the nature of warfare certainly has changed, not just over the last 20 years, but over the last couple of years. Things have changed very dramatically. See Iran's ability using drones. There are, and as the general was saying, so much of the warfare nowadays is electronic warfare. Israel has utilized a lot of that as well. The Iranians are trying to do that back to us, and I do expect that there is going to be. I think what really there are tactics, but there's also the commitment, and there's a general sense that at some point the Trump administration and Israel will give up and will stop. And I think that is what Iran is counting on, and that is what you look at what the stress on the price of oil is something that is designed really to put a lot of pressure. And President Trump has demonstrated one thing, that he is somewhat impervious to pressure. When people think that he can't go any further, that's exactly when he does go further. And I would expect that all of his discussions of negotiations some of it is stalling from logistical reasons, tactical reasons. I do expect that he understands that the regime right now is something that, regardless of what is done, they remain a threat, and ultimately they will figure out some way to remove the regime, because it may be easier to remove the regime than it is to secure that particular piece of geography, as the general was saying, which is so challenging.
General Panu, do you think that the shallow water is proving to be a big challenge for the mighty American Navy?
Yes, of course, because there is no way that you can go into an operation without rehearsals. And I don't think so. The American military has carried out any rehearsal to get into the contingency which is facing them. As a result, every small piece of land and water needs to be studied, not only overground, but also underwater. As far as the ground operations are concerned, I think it is quite evident that Iran has prepared to face the challenges which are aerial, both missiles and from the aerial bombing. And I think largely they have gone subterranean. And the subterranean construction is also catering for the capability which the American and Israel combined probably could bring to bear on them. So if they have prepared for this kind of attack which has manifested, obviously they have withstood the attack. As far as regime is concerned, well, the regime which is political in nature and military command structure are very different. At some point, if the nation goes into military war fighting, with very little political decision to be taken, except to say that, hey, listen, we got to survive. And if pushed to the wall, obviously they got to keep fighting. And at the moment, prolonging war actually goes in favor of Iran, because they are facing the pain and they'll continue to face the pain. But at the end of it, the outcome is that they are still making money on oil. You see the number of tankers which are being still pushed out of Hormuz, that is from the Persian Gulf, are only belonging to sales done by Iran and nobody else. And if any military base which is going to be activated from across, that is from the south, that is the Saudi Arabian side, UAE, Qatar, all this combined.
Those statements, General, those statements have come. UAE and Saudi Arabia, they want to be part of the American operation in clearing the Strait of Hormuz. That development has taken place, sir.
Yes, so therefore it is very clear that the only way that the American boots on ground with SEALs and the marine operation will happen from the southern side. So I think Iranians have also given this kind of a message that they are going to actually target wherever the American troops are going to be taking shelter or preparing. I think there is a lot of ground intelligence, it seems, which is available, that they are doing precise targeting of the American bases.
Okay.
To mount offensive of that size that is being spoken about cannot be hidden.
Okay.
And that too when there is a local intelligence available. So I think it's going to be quite messy.
Okay, my last question to you, before you came, I did a show of the warning that the IDF chief had raised, that the Israeli forces are 20,000 short of troops. He has raised 10 flags, and Israeli army is overstretched. Will Israel put its own boots on grounds in these operations, despite the red flag being raised by the IDF chief?
Yes, the IDF chiefs raised that issue. It was more of trying to push the Israeli parliament to make some changes to. Right now, there is a movement that would actually limit. Right now, it's 36 months is what is the regular amount of time that someone is going ahead with the war. 30 months. It was supposed to move back to 30 months. He wants to keep it at 36. He doesn't want it to go in any different direction. But when it comes to boots on the ground, I don't expect Israel to have boots on the ground other than special forces, something much more limited. The real concern is that we have other problems at our borders with Lebanon, borders with Gaza. Those are still not resolved yet. Those have to be resolved. Those are being resolved. Those are going to require more and more bodies. And we can't be in a situation when we are going backwards, where we're going from 36 months to 30 months of mandatory service.
Absolutely. That was my conclusion. It really absolutely boiled down to the American boots on ground. Thank you both of you for joining me. This is all I had on my On Point tonight.